DaviePHD's Jargon Busters, Episode 2, 30th of September 2020. If you watch the news, it's full of terms like GDP, OECD, IMF, VRM. And usually they are delivered by doer news presenters as bad news. But what do all these terms actually mean, and is the news really as bad as it sounds? In these videos I'm going to bust the jargon and explain what these things mean in terms we all understand. Tonight's jargon is FPTP, or First Past the Post. The Scottish parliamentary elections are next May. As you'll be aware, Scottish elections differ slightly from the UK ones. We all vote for constituency MSPs and do so using the FPTP system, just like UK elections. But we also vote for regional list MSPs using a variation of the dissect system, which we call the additional member system. So I'm going to jargon bust each system and also explain how they marry up in the Scottish elections. This week we'll do first past the post. It's also known as simple majority voting, winner takes all voting, or plurality voting, and it's the most basic form of voting system. In its simplest form, FPTP voting takes place in single member constituencies. Voters put a cross in a box next to their favourite candidate, and the candidate who gathers the most votes in the constituency wins the election. All other votes count for nothing. FPTP is clear, simple and decisive in the majority of cases, but many people would argue that it is anything but a representative voting system. FPTP can also be used in multi-member electoral areas where voters are asked to vote for as many candidates as there are vacancies, like in local council elections. In public elections, first past the post is the second most widely used voting system in the world, after party list proportional representation. It is principally used in electoral systems that either are or were once British colonies. First past the post is currently used to elect MPs to the House of Commons in the UK, Scottish Parliament constituency MSPs, both chambers of US Congress and the lower houses in both Canada and India. The use of first past the post voting systems used to be more widespread, but many countries have now adopted other alternative voting systems. So, let's explain it a little bit easier. Let's say we were having a first past the post election. There were 100 voters and 4 candidates. Candidate A gets 24 votes. Candidate B gets 25 votes. Candidate C gets 25 votes. But candidate D gets 26 votes. Then candidate D is duly elected. So what is good about FPTP? It's simple to understand. It doesn't cost much to administer. It's fairly quick to count the votes and work out who's won, meaning the results can be declared relatively quickly after polls close. In a political environment, first past the post enables voters to clearly express a view on which party they think should form the next government. First past the post is ideally suited to a two-party system, and in those circumstances generally produces single-party governments. So what is bad about first past the post? Well, representatives can get elected with small amounts of public support, as the size of the winning margin is irrelevant. What matters is only that they get more votes than any other candidate. First past the post encourages tactical voting, as voters often vote not for the candidate they most prefer, but against the candidate they most dislike. First past the post is regarded as wasteful, as votes cast in a constituency for losing candidates or for the winning candidate above the level they need to win count for nothing. Rather than allocating seats in line with actual support, first past the post rewards parties with what is often termed lumpy support, that is, with just enough votes to win in each particular area. Having small constituencies often leads to a proliferation of safe seats, where the same party is all but guaranteed re-election at each election. This not only effectively disenfranchises a region's voters, but it leads to these areas becoming ignored when it comes to framing policy. And if large areas of the country are effectively electoral deserts for any particular party, Not only is the area ignored by that party, but ambitious politicians from that area would have to move away from their locality if they aspire to influence within the party. Because first past the post restricts a constituency's choice of candidates, the representation of minorities and women suffers, as the safest looking candidate is the one most likely to be offered a chance to stand for election. And in a multi-party culture, third or fourth parties with significant support can often be greatly disadvantaged. In summary, locally, the good point is that you get to vote for a person as well as a party. But the flip side of that is that your MP can shift party without asking the voters afterwards. Chuka Amuna, I'm looking at you, mate. It's possible to win a seat without a lot of support in a constituency. In Northern Ireland, there was once an MP elected on 11% of the vote. That's because there was a lot of parties and a lot of candidates all really representing the same thing. That MP had a vote just as powerful as our Tory MP David Duguid, who sadly, and despite my best efforts, did actually gain an electoral majority in Barnforbuchan in 2019. Nationally, with first past the post, governments can get strong parliamentary majorities without getting an electoral majority. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing really depends on whether you win or lose. As an example, Boris Johnson got 42% of votes cast and an 80-seat majority, despite only getting 300,000 votes more than Theresa May in 2017, and she needed to strike a deal with the DUP to stay in power. So you can see there's a real disconnect. Traditionally, the UK has been a two-party system, so first past the post probably worked for those hundreds of years. We've only had more than two parties in the last 100 years or so, and it's difficult for a third party to make a breakthrough with first past the post for two reasons. People may like your third party or your fourth party, but feel it's a wasted vote. They'll then vote for the one of the top two that they dislike the least. You're also voting for two things. If, for example, you liked your local Labour MP but weren't keen on Jeremy Corbyn, you had a dilemma. But I suppose the biggest travesty of first past the post system is that the Green Party, the only party out there trying to save us all from the biggest impending disaster that's coming, it could eventually kill us all, only ever get one MP elected. First past the post serves the two big parties very well, and they get to take turns at being in power as long as they're patient. So in my humble opinion, it needs to go. It's good for two-party systems, not fit for multi-party systems. You know, an analogy here, if you were running a 100-metre race, Usain Bolt would likely win and be first past the post. But that doesn't mean all the competitors who also ran don't get recognised. But that's exactly what happens with first past the post voting. In DaviePHD's humble opinion, it's not fit for purpose in a multi-party democracy, but it will take a seismic shift in voting patterns to change it. Next week we'll cover the D'Hondt system, which we use to elect list MSPs in Scotland. Well folks, that's it for first past the post. If there's another 3, 4 or even 5 letter abbreviation driving you nuts, let me know and I'll look into busting it for you. Otherwise, I'd ask you all to comment on the Facebook page, play nicely. Unionists are welcome here, as are their dissenting opinions, as long as they play nicely too. DaviePHD.